welcome everybody. I am so excited today because we actually, to continue this actually leadership conversation series that I've been having. And today I am so honored to be joined by Fiona, who is the founder and CEO of the Wild Network. Fiona, just to check in, how are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Joyce, you and I had a chat before we started this formal part of this broadcast, and I am inspired by the career you've had and the work that you've done, and how you are so generously taking your years of experience and sharing it with others. And I know that you're going to be helping and working with me too to make sure that the Wild Women in Global Development Leadership Forum can really serve the HR audience as well as it possibly could. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yes, yes. And I cannot wait to share that as well as we're going through. Hopefully people will get inspired after we do this
Great.
interview as well to sign up. So, I'm going to start my introductions. My name is Joyce and I am the CEO and founder and also a leadership executive coach of Rise Above Coaching. And again, Fiona is the founder of and the CEO of the Wild Network, and she'll tell us a little bit more about that and how their mission got started. I can't wait to hear. Wow, she is one of the pioneer voices in the fields of social entrepreneurship and international development, committed to helping other women make their mark in social change sector. And I'll share our story later on. She's truly, truly committed to helping people achieve their potential. Similar thing that we do in leadership coaching. And early in her career, she founded and for 20 years was the CEO of Making Sense International, a social enterprise dedicated to economic growth that did business across 100 countries, which I think is remarkable. And at that time, her social enterprise was acquired. Fiona was recognized among one of the top 1% of US female business owners. So again, this is why I had to get you into this interview today. She's a keynote speaker. She's a keynote speaker in global conferences. She's done the TEDx speaker talk, and we'll talk about that because I love that segment. She's done popular leadership columns under Inc.com, and she has actually been featured too in the New York Times. And Fiona is also a professor too in the entrepreneurship at Georgetown University. And I love Georgetown because actually that's why Fiona, I got my executive leadership coaching. That's why I started. So we have that. We have a lot in common already. So Fiona, welcome. It is such a pleasure to have you here today. And perhaps you could maybe start by introducing the Wild Network and their mission and what inspired you to start that organization.
Thank you, Joyce. What a generous introduction. The WILD Network stands for the Women Innovators and Leaders Development Network. And our focus is advancing women's leadership as well as equity, diversity, and inclusion in the global development sector. And I got started with WILD a few years ago when I sold my company that had been working in the global development sector. I wanted to have a chance to give back to the women and the really incredible leaders at all levels in the global development sector. In particular, as a used to be young leader myself, who sort of spent my career growing up and growing into a CEO role, I had learned that there was leadership behaviors that, if learned earlier in our careers, or in fact at any time in our careers, could help us to be more effective and have the influence that we would want in our professional lives, as well as have greater balance between our professional and personal lives, and to generally be happier at work. So in starting Wild, I wanted to bring this kind of information forward into the global development sector. And of course, the professionals in our sector do incredible work in the areas of economic development, health, agriculture, but we're not a sector that is necessarily accustomed to investing in ourselves. And I hope that by shining a spotlight on the opportunities for us to do, so I'd hope that by shining a spotlight on how our sector could do even more to support leadership growth,
Yeah.
and how individually we had even more opportunities to enhance our leadership skills, that this would support women and men in their to really enjoy their work and to have the greatest impact possible.
Yeah, and I think that is so important that you mentioned that because, that is a very key missing point of where we don't invest in ourselves. And that's kind of where I started with this, like you mentioned, after years of being in HR, after years of being in international development, I felt, wow, I wish I knew what I know now as I was growing up into the leadership role, right? So that makes a huge impact. So here we are, Fiona, in 2021, and new beginnings. And perhaps there's still so much going on that's volatile, uncertain, and complex issues that are still facing, just not here, also globally, because you're very involved in that arena. What are some of the self-awareness perspectives, personally, or as a leader, are you welcoming as we go into this 2021 year?
Well, Joyce, I love that question because self awareness, in fact, I think the stat is something like 82% of us think we're very self aware, but only 21% of us are. It's something like that, where there's a big differential between how we self aware we think we are and then how self aware we really come across to others. And really, starting with ourselves is the secret to great leadership.
Yeah.
So in 2021, as you say, we all have a lot going on in our lives. We did before, but now it's even more of a juggle.
Mhm.
Kids at home, homeschooling, worried about health issues, family members we may be taking care of, and of course, just all of the change and uncertainty. It's a lot for each of us to manage.
Yeah.
So what I'm really focused on doing is no matter what is going on in my life, no matter what frustrations I might be having, no matter what sort of sea of emotions I may have inside, I make a conscious effort to show up being calm and supportive and not rushed with colleagues and partners. And the reason for that is that that kind of steadiness from a leader is very important. And I want to also be clear because I don't want I don't want to instill or signal that I'm looking for any kind of perfectionism in myself or in others, but rather it's to really do my best to manage those emotions so that I can be sort of steady and supportive to colleagues. And I will still say, for example, oh, it's been a rough week, to be honest with people. And it is good to let others kind of know what's going on with you, right? As they are thinking about their own self-awareness and what is, might be the right things to talk about or wait till Monday, in those conversations, but to ensure that there's sort of an equilibrium
Yeah.
that I am offering across the board. And I think what that invites with others is authenticity. I think it's, them also feeling like if they're not showing up as their best selves that day, like it's okay because I'm offering sort of a steady environment. But what about you? Does that resonate with you in your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on such good things. Is one is how you show up as leaders, right? And that's being intentional about that. And is it's just that's just where you say you're being authentic, and even being able to say, wow, I had a rough week, and not having those expectations of that you got to show up always perfect, which probably doesn't happen, but being able to acknowledge that as a leader is so strong, and I think that's what we hope, even as I'm doing this conversation series with leaders, that people get to see that, that, you can, even with leaders, they're still human, they can, they go through their own stuff, but maybe the key, which you just said, is acknowledging and being able to show that so that other people could see that, oh, wow, okay, I could be myself because my
Mm-hmm.
leader is him or herself, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even as we're speaking to this, and you did mention, so many things have changed. The world of work has changed. Home, work life. Even for me, I have to tell my kids, don't come down for 1 hour. The global landscape has completely changed. Even from the experts, expatriates and third country nationals who probably had to come back to their home countries, and then the field people just kind of left there. So, what are some of the challenges, leader challenges, that need to be addressed in order for us to be successful? Can you think of some of those leadership challenges that are really critical at this moment?
Yeah. Well, I think it is the working remotely is different.
Hmm.
So I think increasingly, right, over the last several years, many of us may have been increasingly work remotely, but 100% of the time, I think that's new from many of us. And, so what's different? Well, the need to have shorter meetings, I
Yeah.
think, is different. The need on those meetings to just be a really good listener because we don't have the same cues that we used to. Right? I don't necessarily know when you're going to finish speaking. Picking up on what someone says in an in-person meeting quite quickly is sort of easy, but if I do that here with you now, there's a real risk of cutting you off. so,
Yeah.
so I think something that's different for us all is being able to realize what we're doing is different, and then how do we adjust? And I think working with one another is one of those ways. And I don't know about you, but something that I am consistently impressed by is that it is possible to connect online. I think video, not we don't need to use it all the time, but it has great moments to offer connectivity. So, for example, at the Women in Global Development Leadership Forum we did last year, it was our first virtual forum. A silver lining is that we were able to expand to have people from 14 countries to 54 countries. Huge silver lining that we were able to bring in the whole global development community.
Yeah.
And while we had this incredible number of people and over 200 organizations participating, I was concerned that we wouldn't have that same kind of real human, authentic, like sparks and new friendships and reconnection that I know has happened at our live convenings. But the magic of being, for example, in the intimacy of a breakout session room, I
Yeah.
think was extraordinary. And
Yeah.
what I heard, like three things that I heard from stakeholders who had been to our live, women's leadership events, and then at this one was it took the pressure away from like who am I going to talk to in the coffee line, right? Like you're
Wow.
zapped into a room with other people.
Yeah.
That sometimes it can be uncomfortable to go up to people who you'd like to meet with, and then there you are in the breakout session room. And of course, there's an incredible egalitarianism that comes with that because four of us were just all four faces in boxes on the screen. And people said that sometimes it allowed them to jump more quickly into these authentic, sort of quite intimate conversations. I think where a lot of the openness and the learning takes place.
Yeah.
So this virtual world, right? There's things that it pushes us to do differently. It's not just a complete adaptation of the live work world online. And then we have these new opportunities. And I think the question is, how can we seize those?
Yes, yes, yes. And I love how you even mentioned those breakout rooms, because I know I've been quite a few of those, and they are, I mean, they've been really great, and also the fact that, the virtual learning kind of almost forces us to be intentional about really paying attention, it's because when you're multitasking, it's kind of somebody's going to probably notice that you're not really paying attention. So it allows us to really pay attention to the other person, and as you mentioned, even just paying attention to the emotional cues, because you're not with somebody face to face, but you could still get that experience when we're doing a virtual conference like this, which is really good. And you mentioned, wow, Fiona, you have mentored, inspired so many women globally. So we're gonna kind of switch this. So your work internationally with NGOs, universally, right? And we try to, this is where diversity comes in, equity comes in. What skills or characteristics do women bring to leadership positions that you can highlight?
Yeah, thank you, Joyce. Well, so I am an anti-essentialist feminist, meaning that I believe that women and men should have equal rights, equal economic opportunity, rights before the law, and so on. I don't believe that women and men have essential characteristics. I think that we often see that women are more likely to behave in this way or men more in that way. Of course, the perennial question is that nature or nurture, and I think a lot of it has to do with nurture. So that said, um, um, the way that I see it is that there are different expectations of women and men, right, in our societies and in our cultures, and in a lot of ways, men are given more latitude than women. So something that's been so much in the news the last couple of years, right, is men interrupting women. Well, I don't think that you're born feeling like you have the right to interrupt people. I think it's something that gets learned. And if women, I think often if women have the experience of behaving in that way, they're going to get shut down so quickly. They're going to quickly learn that you are not going to get away with interrupting people, especially people who are more senior, who have more status than you do. So that brings us to, so what are the special abilities that women leaders are bringing? And I think that whether it's been through good or bad culture, a culturalization, good or bad experiences, I think that women will often tend to be stronger on the leadership behavior that many of us lead us to feel comfortable at work. So things like being listened to, having empathy expressed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that whether you're as a female leader, these come naturally or not, I think that they are behaviors that help us to be successful at work and that it helps us to get the best out of the people around us. And I think what we see with the great leaders out there, whether female or male,
Yeah.
we see these attributes
Yeah.
of great leaders.
Yeah.
And the other one that I would add is humility. I think that the greatest leaders I know are actually incredibly humble. And while they project power, it's not a hard power through, I'm going to dominate you. Like we do see that, but I don't think we see that in the great leaders who we would, any group of people would sort of commonly say, agree, like that's a great leader. So I think the opportunity women have is whether it's through nature or nurture, we have many of these attributes of great leaders.
Yeah.
And then the question is, are we accessing all the behaviors open to us to rise to those most senior positions? And then, of course, are the organizations that we're working in, are they, and is there an enabling environment that
Yeah.
is also, supporting us with those great behaviors to be able to rise and have the same shots at senior leadership as our, for example, our male counterparts.
Yeah, I mean that is so powerful, and you spoke on empathy, and you spoke on probably touched on a little bit of humility and emotional intelligence that women naturally bring to these roles, right? And you are right. If you take the scale, and probably any leadership survey or assessment that ever takes place, you don't find leaders like, oh, he's a good leader because he's got the skills, right? It's more of, wow, he's a good leader because he's empathetic. He's a good leader because he has shows humility, right? And that's, I think, and you're right, I think that's what women need to embody and feel empowered to rise, because they have those qualities, and those qualities could be infectious as you look at it from a spectrum of
Right.
women or men, right?
Yeah.
It
I
is.
love how you say that. Yeah.
It is infectious. I mean, last, January 20th, we saw Vice President, Kamala Harris, make history, and, you look at those two candidates and you can just see it's so organic. It feels so great, so, and maybe some of the things, what are some of the significant barriers, maybe that bottleneck women leadership,
Well, so,
you're thinking about?
sometimes we're getting in the way of ourselves.
Okay.
Sometimes it's organizations or other structural considerations that are getting in our way. And I think it can be hard to know, like, is it me or my environment?
Mm-hmm.
I imagine if we had a magic ball that we could ask that question to, it would help so many of us with critical career decisions. Like,
Yeah.
in order to get where I want to go, do I need to leave this organization? Or to get where I want to go, do I need to work on myself more?
Yeah.
And circling back to where we started about self-awareness, it
Mm-hmm.
can be very hard to sort through these questions by ourselves. So I do think that having leadership coach, career coach, kind of a kitchen cabinet of people who you really respect and who really get you, sort of your informal advisory board, these external forces, I think, are incredibly helpful. But I do want to underline the leadership coaching because Joyce, I know you're a leadership coach.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I am not. I am a huge proponent and advocate of leadership coaching. I have benefited from leadership coaching. I link, actually, Wild has a leadership coaching program running right now, a pro
Yeah.
bono leadership coaching where we have um, more than 90 women in over 30 countries working in global development who are receiving pro bono leadership coaching. And we're doing that because we want to support those women to
Yeah.
thrive and rise in their careers. But we also are doing it to build the culture to make awareness of leadership coaching in the global development sector because we think it can have such a positive impact. Anyway, that's a bit of an aside, but I share that because I do like to share. I'm not a leadership coach, so I'm not shilling from my own profession, but I do think that in sorting through some of these questions, having a seasoned, experienced leadership coach can be incredibly helpful because it is very hard to discern, when we're getting in our own way.
Yeah.
And on the topic, it also takes, I think, great humility to take a hard look at ourselves and think, what behaviors might I need to tweak, or might I shape? There's this great book by Marshall Goldsmith called "What Got You Here Won't Get You There."
Yeah. I love that
And then
book.
Sally Helgeson,
Yeah.
which is, we met through a workshop that Sally and I offered together,
Yeah.
kind of took those habits of what got you here won't get you there, looked at through a gender lens, thinking of like what are the habits that help women to rise. And I think what is useful about that lens, if we think about how am I getting in my own way, and I'll talk about one of the weaknesses I had for a long time, which was around perfectionism.
Mm.
And perfectionism is not actually about quality,
Mm-hmm.
although it's about postponement and delays. And earlier in our careers, we do learn that you've got to get everything right on that PowerPoint slide. Every margin in that report has to be perfect because that's the job. But
Yes.
in order to rise, you don't have the time, and that should no longer be your job. So there's things that we have to let go of to rise to senior leadership. And I think a big thing to look at is like, what is important now? So what is in front of you on your plate that like, what is important now?
Yeah.
And I know that many entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs out there, may suffer from what me and many entrepreneurs suffer from, which is a feeling of like, we're the only ones can do it exactly the way that I want it done. And that's true. Like, there may not many people who can get it exactly the way I want it done, but there are a lot of different ways to get it done. So if I can be successful in painting a picture to my colleagues of like, this is the goal and here's the sandbox that I'm inviting you to play in,
Yeah.
then it actually, what's important now is more likely to get done. And it frees, in this case, frees me up to do things that I truly can only do because I'm really supporting and equipping, others to take forward other important pieces.
Wow. Wow. And I love that. And I think it goes back to that self-awareness, and actually you are right. I remember sitting in the room with you and Sally, who wrote the book How Women Rise. And that actually is what inspired me to, step into my own power and take this adventure. And I think, and you spoke about that on your TED Talk, so when I was watching the TEDx conversation about choosing your own adventure is so important, because if you kind of wait for that to happen, then, that means you might need to do a little bit of self-awareness, because we are all, whole, we are all creative, we are all capable of it. And it's just a matter of maybe having that leadership coach be able to bring that out, not doing the work for you. It's more than you playing in that sandbox and being curious and experimental with life, because to get whatever you want to get to. So, oh, sorry about that. So again, what words of wisdom as we're wrapping up, because you truly inspired me, you and Sally. I walked out of that conference saying, okay, this is what I want to do. And we'll talk about the Women in Global Development Leadership Network, because I think everybody should attend that. Because, I was such a benefit from it. And I think everybody would really, really benefit from that. So what words of wisdom can you share as we're wrapping up on the next generation of leaders, and maybe female or whatever leaders they are, whoever leaders are coming
Yes.
up, whether male or female, I guess,
Well, Joyce, I'm taking inspiration from you and that you made that career pivot. And of course, you've like made my week knowing that I had a small role to play in that.
Yes.
So I think, it's the just go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And most entrepreneurs are around 42. So in the US, the majority of people who start businesses are actually people in their early 40s.
Wow.
So it's not the university dropout at 18 or 22. And so you offer us a great example of how you built up tremendous skills and expertise and a network. And then there was a moment, in the many chapters of your career where you decided actually you wanted something different. And often, at that point, when you leave full-time employment to start your own initiative, your own business, of some kind, ultimately, we're trading security for freedom,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot that goes into that. I don't underestimate trading security for freedom. But I think that if you are someone, wherever you are in your career, if just like hearing those words, do you want to trade your security for freedom? And if you inside are screaming, yes, I
Yes.
do. Um, I, I, I say go for it. Be smart about it.
Yeah.
Think about that, your skills and your network, and think about who could be your formal or informal mentors, or who can get a little bit of help here for something specific. And I think definitely get your kitchen cabinet together, get your cheerleading squad together, and I say go for it. And one other thing I'll say is, whenever you start your own thing, whatever it is, there's a lot of hats that you wear. Big push, big lift to get things off the ground.
Yes.
Make sure you're celebrating the small wins.
Oh,
Make sure you're celebrating the small wins, because it's the small wins that continue to fuel you. And there is no final destination. So you got to enjoy the journey.
I think that is actually, thank you for reminding that. Like there is no destination, it's, yes, you have to enjoy the journey. And yes, it is so much uplift that requires as an entrepreneur. But yes, you have got to celebrate those small wins. Even doing this interview today, I'm like, yes, this is like made my week. So thank you, Fiona, so much for your insights today. It's so good. You were so present. You were such an inspiration, and I really want to thank you. And what I will share, even as I'm wrapping up, is the Wild Network is hosting their virtual 2021 Women in Global Development Leadership Forum. That's happening in May 5th, 6th. So people have time to sign up. So Fiona, I will share that information too as I am publishing this. Is there anything else you want to share about that specific conference? And I think, again, I will encourage people to look at it. Go to thewildnetwork.org so you could get some information on how to register for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, you can go to www.wildleadershipforum.org. It's happening May 5th and 6th. It's like
Mhm.
2 full days with interactive sessions. There's so many chances to network and connect. And we're really bringing world-class leadership content to the global development sector. We have a
Yeah.
combination of leading leadership experts who kindly jump to be involved. We're so fortunate. And we also have leaders at all stages of their career from the global development sector. So it's
Yes.
quite a special mix of people and topics that you're going to benefit from and get inspired from. And yeah, we'd love to have your stakeholders there, Joyce.
Yes, we will. We will get them there. So thank you. Thank you so much. And I really hope you have a wonderful week. And this has been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Joyce. Let's celebrate this interview. I'm very
Yes.
grateful too.
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.